Welcome back, Lincoln Currency. Imagine you're holding a tiny coin that's barely worth a penny, a small, brownish red disc that most people overlook, drop under couches, or toss into jars without a second thought. But what if I told you that one of these ordinary-looking 1991 pennies has a hidden secret? A secret so extraordinary that a single one of them could be worth not just a few dollars or a few thousand, but up to $92 million in today's coin-collecting market. It sounds unbelievable, doesn't it? How can something worth just 1 cent possibly turn into a life-changing fortune? But stay with me, because by the end of this story, you'll never look at a penny the same way again. Let's travel back to 1991, a year of transition and technology, a time when America was changing, the Cold War was ending, and the U.S. Mint continued its centuries-old mission of producing the nation's currency. The Lincoln cent had already been circulating for over 8 decades, first introduced in 1909 to honor the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth. The penny was America's most familiar coin, found in every pocket, every cash register, every child's piggy bank. But the 1991 Lincoln penny was more than just another cent. It was a symbol of American endurance, design evolution, and quiet artistry, all condensed into a coin just 19 millimeters wide and weighing a mere 2.5 grams. That's right, 2.5 grams. Light as a feather, yet carrying over 230 years of American minting heritage. By 1991, the penny's composition had changed drastically from its original 1909 version. The early Lincoln cents were struck from 95% copper, rich and warm in color, giving them that classic deep reddish tone. But due to rising copper prices in the early 1980s, the mint faced a dilemma. Producing pennies was becoming more expensive than the coin's actual face value. So, in 1982, the U.S. Mint transitioned from copper to a cheaper metal core. Since then, pennies have been made of 97.5% zinc and coated with a thin layer of copper, giving them the same traditional look but a very different metallic heart. That same metallic formula continued in 1991. So when you hold a 1991 penny, you're actually holding mostly zinc, not copper. A small change on paper, but in the world of numismatics, it marks a major turning point. Now, let's talk about the design. On the front, or obverse side, you'll find the timeless portrait of Abraham Lincoln, designed by Victor David Brenner, the Lithuanian-born artist who gave the penny its iconic look back in 1909. His initials, VDB, once controversial and even removed from the coin in its first year, had been restored by 1918 and can still be found subtly beneath Lincoln's shoulder on later issues. Above Lincoln's head reads the proud phrase, "In God We Trust," first appearing on U.S. coins during the Civil War era, a motto that has endured ever since. To the left, Liberty, the embodiment of American freedom, and to the right, the year, 1991, with or without a small mint mark depending on where the coin was struck. No mark means it was minted in Philadelphia, while a small D represents Denver, and an S indicates the San Francisco Mint, which in 1991 produced proof coins for collectors rather than circulation. Flip the coin, and there it is, the reverse side featuring the Lincoln Memorial, designed by Frank Gasparo, introduced in 1959 to replace the original wheat ears design. This image isn't just architectural. Look closer, and you'll notice that even the tiny statue of Lincoln is visible inside the memorial's center. The words, "United States of America," arched proudly above, the denomination, 1 cent, sits bold and centered below, and the Latin phrase, "E pluribus unum," meaning, "out of many one," rests elegantly across the top of the memorial. Every line, every stroke, every curve on that coin tells a story of art, history, and national pride etched into a small metallic disc that has circulated through millions of hands for over 3 decades. But here's where things get truly fascinating. The year 1991 wasn't just another ordinary minting year. While billions of Lincoln cents were produced, over 5.16 billion in Philadelphia, 4.16 billion in Denver, and about 3 million proof coins in San Francisco, a few of them came out with mysterious, almost imperceptible differences. Tiny variations that went unnoticed by the average eye but caught the attention of numismatists, coin collectors who study and treasure these differences. Some of these 1991 pennies exhibited doubling in the date or lettering, while others displayed faint off-center strikes, planchet errors, or misaligned dies. Each flaw turned what should have been a 1-cent coin into a rare collectible potentially worth thousands. But then, there's the legend, the whispers of a few ultra-rare era coins that somehow escaped quality control, made of the wrong metal, or bearing unusual minting characteristics that make them nearly priceless today. Imagine this, somewhere out there, hidden in a jar, buried in an attic, or resting quietly in a coin collection, could be a 1991 penny struck on a bronze planchet instead of zinc. Only a few of these have ever surfaced, and each time one does, the coin world erupts in excitement. These rare errors occur when leftover bronze planchets from the early 1980s accidentally find their way into later minting batches. A single one of those bronze-based 1991 pennies can be worth tens or even hundreds of thousands of dollars, and that's not even the most extraordinary part. Some collectors and auction experts believe that a unique specimen, possibly with a double die strike and perfect mint luster, could command an astronomical value, the fabled $92 million coin. Whether it truly exists or not remains a topic of debate, but the belief alone fuels the fire of discovery, sending thousands of collectors searching through jars of old pennies every year. Let's pause for a second and imagine the journey of just one of these coins. Picture it freshly struck in 1991 at the Denver Mint, bright, shiny, flawless, still warm from the coining press. It tumbles down the production line with hundreds of thousands of others, all identical in size, shape, and weight. It's bagged, boxed, shipped, and released into circulation, finding its way into pockets, purses, and cash registers across America. Maybe it buys a stick of gum, maybe it gets dropped on a sidewalk, maybe it rests in a child's collection of lucky coins. Over the years, it travels, through time, through people, through moments. Every scratch, every nick, every faint discoloration tells a story of where it's been. And yet, among the billions, one coin carries that unique error, that tiny variance invisible to most but powerful enough to change a life. That's what makes coin collecting so thrilling, the endless possibility that you could be holding history in your hand without even knowing it. Now, let's talk about the technicals, because the 1991 pennies details are a masterpiece of miniature engineering. Each coin measures exactly 19.05 millimeters in diameter, with a smooth edge, no ridges like a dime or quarter. Its metal composition, as mentioned, is primarily zinc with just 2.5% copper plating. This copper coating is about 8 microns thick, giving it that traditional reddish hue, but beneath lies a silver-gray core that can sometimes show through when the copper wears off. The coin's die orientation is standard, meaning if you flip it top to bottom, the reverse side appears upright. The weight tolerance is extremely precise. Each coin must weigh 2.5 grams, plus or minus 0.1 gram. That precision alone demonstrates the technological sophistication of the U.S. Mint's machinery, capable of striking billions of coins each year with microscopic consistency. But while the specifications are consistent, the human fascination with these tiny tokens is not. The 1991 penny, like many other coins of its era, bridges two worlds, the traditional world of tangible money and the modern age of digital transactions. In 1991, debit cards were emerging, ATMs were common, and yet, cash was still king. Pennies jingled in every pocket, and counting them was part of everyday life. For older generations, they represented thrift and patience. For children, a first step into the world of saving. That's why even today, when people stumble upon a rare penny, it feels magical, like finding treasure hidden in plain sight. As collectors began studying 1991 pennies, they discovered intriguing varieties. The most well-known among them are the 1991 D double die obverse, the 1991 wide AM reverse, though officially that variety became famous for later years like 1998 to 2000, and certain off-metal strikes. Each error tells a different story about how something can go wrong in the mechanical perfection of the minting process. Sometimes dies are misaligned, sometimes planchets are fed incorrectly, and sometimes metal mixtures deviate slightly from the standard. Even the tiniest deviation can create something unique enough to spark global fascination. And that's where the story of the $92 million penny begins to take on a mythic quality. According to some numismatic circles, a private collector allegedly acquired a 1991 Lincoln cent with an extraordinary set of attributes: flawless strike, deep mirror finish, and an unverified but rumored metallic anomaly. The story claims the coin was later appraised by private collectors and insurance firms for an estimated value of $92 million due to its unparalleled rarity and condition. While the veracity of this story remains uncertain, with no official auction record ever confirming such a sale, the legend itself has become a phenomenon. It drives curiosity, hope, and excitement among collectors and everyday people alike. After all, it's not just about money, it's about the possibility that the most ordinary things around us might conceal something extraordinary. Think about it. How many 1991 pennies have passed through your hands without a second thought? How many times have you dropped one on the ground, heard that little metallic clink, and just walked away? Maybe, just maybe, one of those coins wasn't ordinary at all. Maybe it was the one coin people dream about. The beauty of numismatics lies in that uncertainty, in the idea that every old coin has a story to tell and a secret to reveal. And that's what keeps collectors searching, in attics, in jars, in rolls of change from banks, always hoping to find the one coin that defies all expectations. As we move deeper into this story, remember that every detail on a penny, every scratch, every shine, and every mint mark can alter its destiny. A regular 1991 penny may be worth just 1 cent, but a rare one, with the right combination of minting anomaly, condition, and provenance, can turn into a life-altering discovery. The market for rare coins has grown tremendously in the past 2 decades. Auction houses like Heritage, Stack's Bowers, and Great Collections have seen simple Lincoln cents fetch record prices, sometimes crossing into 6 or 7 figures for truly exceptional specimens. And yet, the humble penny, the smallest denomination in American currency, continues to captivate the world with stories of hidden fortune. That's why collectors say, check your change. Because sometimes, the treasure you're searching for is already in your hand, you just haven't looked closely enough. And the 1991 penny, with all its history, design, and mystery, is one of those coins that continues to spark that sense of wonder. It's a reminder that greatness doesn't always come in grand sizes or shiny packages. Sometimes, it hides in the smallest corners of everyday life, waiting for someone curious enough to notice. And that's just the beginning, because the deeper you go into the history, minting process, and collector stories behind the 1991 penny, the more fascinating it becomes. The tale of this coin isn't just about metal and money, it's about chance, art, history, and the incredible way that something so common can become so rare. As we continue to unfold the story of the 1991 Lincoln penny, it's impossible not to marvel at how something so small can carry such a rich, layered history. Every curve of its design, every mint mark, every faint imperfection serves as a fingerprint of the era that produced it. 1991 was a year of quiet transition for American coinage, not a year of major design changes, but one of refinement, precision, and subtle evolution. The U.S. Mint had fully modernized its production systems by then, using high-speed coining presses and laser-based quality control systems. Yet, despite all that technology, the charm of minting remained something deeply human, guided by artistry, craftsmanship, and the constant pursuit of perfection. And that's where the 1991 penny stands out, because while it was mass-produced in the billions, its finest versions still represent the pinnacle of coin-making quality. Now think about how the penny travels through time. A coin minted in 1991 has now been in circulation for over 3 decades. That's 34 years of passing through countless hands, from cash registers in small-town diners to vending machines in college campuses, to being dropped into tip jars and children's piggy banks. If coins could speak, a 1991 penny could tell stories of entire generations. It would remember the feel of denim pockets, wooden counters, car cup holders, and maybe even that one collector who spotted its glimmer and thought, this one looks different. This one might be special. The idea of rarity often feels mystical, but in the world of numismatics, it's rooted in data, detail, and observation. Not all 1991 pennies are rare, of course. In fact, most are extremely common, valued only at their face value. But among billions, a few are born with subtle mistakes, invisible at first glance, but when magnified under a lens, they become portals into the mechanical dance of minting. Let's take a closer look at those mistakes, or, as collectors prefer to call them, varieties and errors. One of the most intriguing varieties comes from what's known as a double die, a minting phenomenon that occurs when a coin die, the metal stamp used to impress designs onto blank planchets, shifts slightly between strikes. When that happens, elements like the date, lettering, or motto appear doubled. The 1991 Lincoln cent has been known to show this doubling effect in some examples, especially in the "In God We Trust" or the numerals of the year. While not as dramatic as the famous 1955 double die penny, these varieties still command attention and high prices when discovered in pristine, uncirculated condition. The sharpness of the doubling, the clarity of the features, and the overall luster of the coin can all push its value into the thousands. Then there are off-center strikes, coins struck slightly out of alignment, resulting in a partial blank crescent on one edge. The more off-center the strike, the rarer the coin, especially if the date remains visible. A 1991 penny struck 50% off-center with a visible date and mint mark could easily fetch hundreds or even thousands depending on its condition. Other fascinating mint errors include broad strikes, die cracks, clipped planchets, and wrong metal strikes, each of which tells a unique story of how even the most precise minting machinery can produce tiny miracles of imperfection. But perhaps the most captivating kind of rarity is the one tied to material, the composition of the metal itself. As we discussed earlier, by 1991, pennies were supposed to be made of zinc with a thin copper coating. However, on rare occasions, a leftover bronze planchet, a blank made from the pre-1982 copper composition, could accidentally be fed into the presses. When that happens, the resulting coin is dramatically different in both color and weight. Instead of weighing 2.5 grams like a normal zinc penny, these rare bronze strikings weigh around 3.1 grams. That small difference, detectable only by a sensitive scale, can transform a 1-cent coin into an object worth thousands. A few such off-metal errors from the early 1990s have been authenticated by grading services like PCGS and NGC, and each discovery adds to the myth of the ultra-rare 1991 bronze penny, the kind collectors dream about finding in a handful of loose change. Now, let's talk about those grading services, because they play a crucial role in determining a coin's value. When a collector believes they've found something special, they submit it to professional graders who analyze every microscopic detail, surface condition, luster, strike quality, and minting characteristics. Each coin is then encapsulated in a tamper-proof plastic holder and assigned a grade on the Sheldon scale, ranging from poor, P1, to the perfect mint state 70, MS 70. The difference between a coin graded MS 63 and MS 67 might seem small, but it can mean a price jump from $50 to $5,000 or more. And for the 1991 penny, which was struck in such high quantities, the top grade examples, flawless, brilliant, and free of even the tiniest blemish, are the true treasures. Some collectors chase perfection not for rarity of design, but for rarity of condition. One of the fascinating things about the 1991 penny market is how collectors interpret its beauty. Under magnification, the fine lines of Lincoln's hair, the texture of his coat, the tiny steps of the Lincoln Memorial, all become works of art. Gasparo's reverse design, though replaced in 2009 with a new depiction of Lincoln's early years, still represents an era of American symbolism. The Lincoln Memorial reverse was minted from 1959 to 2008, nearly half a century, and it stands as one of the most familiar and beloved designs in U.S. coinage history. Every 1991 penny is part of that lineage, a chapter in the long story of how a simple cent became a national icon. The penny itself has always been more than currency, it's a piece of memory. People save pennies from their birth years, from moments of luck, or from meaningful places. The phrase, "Find a penny, pick it up, and all day you'll have good luck," isn't just superstition, it reflects our innate sense of connection to small symbols of fortune. And so, when collectors talk about the 1991 penny worth $92 million, it's not just about greed or wealth. It's about the idea that even the humblest object can hide something miraculous. That one in billions might hold a mystery that no machine could perfectly reproduce again. When we examine the reported claims surrounding this $92 million penny, we find a blend of truth, myth, and speculation. Some numismatic forums reference an extraordinary specimen discovered during the 2000s, a 1991 D. Lincoln cent exhibiting a mirror-like proof finish, struck on an experimental planchet, and authenticated privately rather than publicly auctioned. Others argue that the $92 million figure likely represents an insured value rather than an actual sale price, a reflection of its uniqueness and the collector's unwillingness to part with it. Whether the story is myth or reality, what matters most is how it ignites curiosity. Because at the heart of coin collecting lies a powerful truth: discovery is as thrilling as ownership. In the modern market, ordinary 1991 pennies in circulated condition are worth 1 cent, just as intended. But uncirculated rolls, coins that have never seen daily handling, can fetch a premium. A brilliant, uncirculated 1991 D penny might sell for a few dollars, while those graded above MS66 by PCGS or NGC can reach $100 or more. Proof coins struck in San Francisco with special mirrored dies often sell for slightly higher, between $5 and $25 depending on condition and demand. But error coins, particularly those with major anomalies, can leap into the thousands. That's where the passion of collectors truly comes alive, the thrill of finding something that defies expectation. Now imagine the atmosphere of a coin auction. The room is silent except for the rhythmic tapping of the auctioneer's gavel. Collectors from around the world sit poised, each holding their bidding paddles, waiting for the next lot to appear. The announcer calls it lot number 412, 1991 D. Lincoln cent, off-metal strike, authenticated by PCGS. The coin is projected on a large screen, magnified for everyone to see. It looks ordinary, but under the lights, the differences are unmistakable. The color slightly warmer, the texture subtly different, the weight recorded at 3.09 grams. Bidding starts at $5,000. Hands rise. Numbers climb. 10,000, 20,000, 40,000, and before long, it hits a record-breaking figure. Applause fills the room as the gavel falls. For most people, it's just a penny. For collectors, it's a piece of living history. That's the magic of numismatics. Each coin is a tiny time capsule. It connects us not just to the moment it was struck, but to the countless hands it's passed through, the stories it's witnessed, the small everyday acts that define human life. The 1991 penny may seem unremarkable at first glance, but when you trace its origins, materials, and symbolism, it becomes a reflection of the country itself, a mix of art, innovation, and resilience. Even the metal that forms it, zinc at the core, copper on the surface, mirrors the idea of strength wrapped in beauty, practicality covered in tradition. Think about how pennies endure. They survive recessions, wars, inflation, and even debates about whether they should be discontinued. There have been countless proposals to eliminate the penny from U.S. currency due to its low purchasing power and high production costs. Yet it endures, because it's more than a coin. It's part of the American identity. It carries the face of one of the nation's most beloved presidents, a man who led the country through its darkest hour and left behind a legacy of unity and equality. Every time someone picks up a 1991 penny and reads, "In God We Trust," they're connecting with a tradition that has lasted for over a century. But there's another side to this coin, the emotional one. For many people, the penny is tied to nostalgia. The year 1991 might mark a birth year, a graduation, a wedding, or a first job. That's why collectors often seek coins from specific years, not for their monetary worth, but for personal significance. The sentimental value of a 1991 penny found in a family drawer or passed down from a grandparent can be priceless. It reminds us that money, at its core, is not just a tool of trade, it's a symbol of memory and connection. In the end, What truly makes a 1991 penny worth millions isn't just its rarity or metal content, it's the story it tells. Stories create value. When a collector holds a coin and feels the weight of its past, they're holding a fragment of time that no longer exists anywhere else. The $92 million penny, real or legendary, represents the pinnacle of that idea, the dream that something ordinary can become extraordinary through discovery, history, and passion. And somewhere, even now, that dream continues. Maybe a child sorting through a pile of old coins will stumble upon a shiny 1991 penny, notice something unusual, and unknowingly hold one of the rarest coins in the world. Maybe a collector, decades from now, will find a hidden variation no one has ever seen. That's what makes this story timeless. Because as long as there are pennies, there will always be seekers. The 1991 penny, in all its modest glory, stands as a reminder that value isn't always about what something costs, it's about what it represents. A single cent can carry the spirit of a nation, the vision of its designers, the legacy of its leader, and the hope of its people. And when a coin like that crosses paths with the right eyes, someone who understands its hidden depth, that's when magic happens. Every great story in coin collecting has its turning point, that moment when curiosity transforms into obsession. And for thousands of collectors, the 1991 penny became that spark. What seemed like a regular year's minting run turned out to be a treasure chest of secrets. Some of those secrets would remain buried for decades, hidden in rolls of coins sitting quietly in old drawers or forgotten banks. Others would surface slowly, one discovery at a time, in dusty coin shops, garage sales, and online auctions where ordinary people suddenly realized they might be holding history between their fingers. When you study a 1991 penny closely, it's easy to forget how much science, precision, and art go into minting something so small. The U.S. Mint operates under extreme tolerances, each die carefully engraved with microscopic detail, each planchet polished and cleaned before being fed into high-speed presses capable of striking hundreds of coins per minute. The pressure during striking exceeds 40 tons, forcing metal to flow into every crevice of the die, capturing even the smallest lines in Lincoln's hair and the tiny steps of the Lincoln Memorial. The noise on the production floor is deafening, a rhythmic clatter of steel, zinc, and copper, the heartbeat of an institution that has produced billions of coins since the 18th century. In 1991, those presses worked relentlessly, producing over 9 billion pennies between the Philadelphia and Denver mints. But even in such vast production, perfection is elusive. No matter how advanced the machinery, a few coins always escape the process with unique flaws, the rare, beautiful mistakes that collectors crave. And it's those mistakes that give the 1991 penny its mystique. Let's start with one of the most intriguing errors ever associated with the Lincoln cent: the wrong planchet strike. Imagine a blank coin disc meant for a dime, or a foreign coin accidentally slipping into the penny press. The result is a coin struck with Lincoln's image, but on a smaller, thinner piece of metal, often lighter and with a silvery hue. These wrong planchet 1991 pennies are incredibly scarce. A few authenticated examples have appeared on the market, often commanding thousands of dollars depending on their condition and the type of planchet involved. The discovery of one of these coins always causes a buzz, because it's physical proof that even the most tightly controlled systems sometimes yield beautiful accidents. Then there's the broad strike error, a fascinating phenomenon that occurs when a coin is struck without the restraining collar that normally gives it its perfect round shape. The metal spreads slightly outward, creating a coin that appears larger and flatter than usual, often with faintly distorted lettering near the edges. The date and design remain visible, but everything seems just a bit stretched, almost like the coin melted and froze mid-flow. A 1991 broad strike penny in mint state condition can fetch anywhere from $200 to over $1,000 depending on its appearance and rarity. And let's not forget the off-center strikes, where the design is shifted noticeably to one side, leaving a crescent of blank metal on the opposite edge. These coins feel like frozen motion, a snapshot of mechanical imperfection. The further off-center the strike while still retaining a visible date and mint mark, the more valuable the coin becomes. Collectors often describe these as coins that show the soul of the machine, because they capture that split second when precision faltered and chance took over. But perhaps the most magical discovery in any minting year is the double die. This occurs not because of a mechanical slip, but because of how the dies themselves are created. During die preparation, the master hub impresses the design onto the die multiple times to ensure depth and detail. If the hub shifts even slightly between impressions, the result is a die that carries doubled elements, and every coin struck from that die will show the same doubling. In 1991, several reports emerged of pennies showing faint doubling in Liberty, the numerals of the date, or In God We Trust. While not as dramatic as the famous 1955 or 1972 double die cents, these varieties have gained cult status among collectors. The crispness of the doubling and the brightness of the coin's luster can send values soaring into the thousands, even for a single penny. But what makes the 1991 penny so fascinating isn't just the existence of these errors. It's how they connect us to a broader legacy of coin production. Each anomaly, each imperfection, is a tiny window into the evolution of minting technology. The U.S. Mint of the early 1990s was a fusion of tradition and innovation, still using engraved master hubs designed by human hands, but increasingly aided by computer technology for precision. That balance between human artistry and mechanical consistency gave birth to coins that feel both modern and timeless. Take, for example, the artistry behind Victor David Brenner's portrait of Abraham Lincoln. More than 80 years after its debut, the design still looked dignified, elegant, and deeply human in 1991. Lincoln's gaze is slightly downward, contemplative, symbolizing wisdom and humility. The lines of his coat and beard, captured in relief, represent not just technical skill but emotional depth, a sculptor's ability to translate soul into metal. Brenner's initials, VDB, once controversial, had become a mark of heritage, proudly displayed on every cent struck since 1918. That continuity ties each coin, including the 1991 edition, to more than a century of American history. On the reverse, Frank Gasparo's Lincoln Memorial remains one of the most beloved images in U.S. coinage. Introduced in 1959, it replaced the wheat-ear design of the original Lincoln cent. Gasparo, then the chief engraver of the U.S. Mint, wanted the new design to capture both architectural beauty and symbolic meaning. Hidden within the memorial's tiny columns is a miniature engraving of Lincoln's seated statue, a detail so small that it's barely visible without magnification. Yet it's there, a subtle reminder of continuity, Lincoln on both sides of the coin, facing himself across time. By 1991, that design had become a national classic, instantly recognizable across the world. The symbols surrounding the design tell their own story. E pluribus unum, out of many, one, is not just a motto but a philosophy of unity. In God we trust, represents faith through turmoil. Liberty stands for the unending pursuit of freedom. And together, these inscriptions transform a 1-cent coin into a statement of national identity. That's part of what makes the 1991 penny special. It's not merely an object of trade, but a miniature monument, a bridge between art and economy. And yet, the deeper you go into its material composition, the more remarkable it becomes. The copper-plated zinc penny is an engineering marvel. Each coin's thin outer shell of copper, just 8 microns thick, is electroplated over a pure zinc core. This design was chosen after 1982 to save costs, as copper prices had soared. But this change also introduced new challenges. Zinc is softer and more reactive than copper, meaning that post-1982 pennies often corrode or discolor faster, developing gray or black patches where the copper wears away. For collectors, finding a 1991 penny in pristine, lustrous condition is increasingly difficult, making high-grade examples far rarer than their mintage numbers suggest. It's fascinating to think about how many 1991 pennies have vanished through corrosion, loss, or destruction. Billions were minted, yet only a fraction survive in near-mint condition. Time, circulation, and neglect erode the weak points of every coin, and in that natural decay, rarity is born. A flawless specimen, bright with its original red-orange copper shine, becomes a relic of perfection in a world of impermanence. If a 1991 penny truly exists with such unique properties, perfect minting, flawless luster, experimental metal, and historical significance, then yes, it could conceivably be worth an astronomical figure. The $92 million value might not reflect an auction price but rather an insurance, or appraised estimate for a unique specimen that cannot be replaced. And even if no such coin has been officially verified, the belief in its existence continues to inspire millions to search. That, in itself, gives the coin its true power, the power of imagination. Think about it. Somewhere in America, right now, someone might be sorting through a pile of pennies without realizing that one of them could rewrite history. A small child helping their parent roll coins for the bank. An elderly collector opening a forgotten cigar box filled with coins from decades past. A metal detectorist brushing away dirt in a field, watching the glint of copper emerge from the soil. That moment of discovery, that rush of "what if?" is what drives the entire hobby. The 1991 penny may or may not hold a $92 million secret, but it definitely holds that spark of wonder collectors often talk about. The hunt. It's not just about finding something valuable, it's about the process of learning, examining, and connecting. When a collector picks up a 1991 penny, they don't just see a coin, they see the legacy of Lincoln, the craftsmanship of Brenner and Gasparo, the precision of the U.S. Mint, and the mysterious dance between error and perfection. They weigh it, examine it under magnification, check for doubling, inspect the rim, look for die cracks or plating bubbles, every detail a potential clue. It's a slow, meticulous ritual, but for those who love it, it's pure joy. In the coin collecting world, such dedication often pays off. The market for Lincoln cents remains one of the most active and passionate segments of numismatics. Auctions regularly feature high-grade specimens from almost every year, and the 1991 issues are no exception. Coins graded MS-68 or above, near flawless, with blazing red color and sharp strike, have achieved prices in the thousands. Proof versions from the San Francisco Mint, with mirror-like surfaces and frosted designs, continue to draw premium interest from collectors who value beauty as much as rarity. What's truly remarkable is how this tiny coin connects generations. A 1991 penny might have been given as change to someone buying coffee in the early 90s, then saved by their child as a keepsake, then passed to a grandchild who becomes fascinated by its story decades later. In that sense, each coin becomes a thread in a tapestry of family, history, and curiosity. The value of that connection can't be measured in dollars, even if the market one day places a $92 million price tag on it. The truth is, the 1991 penny embodies everything timeless about collecting: history, art, rarity, and hope. Whether you're holding a simple, worn cent with faded luster or a gleaming mint-state treasure, the story it carries is the same, a story of persistence and transformation. It reminds us that even the most overlooked things in life may carry hidden worth. It's a lesson in attention, patience, and discovery, and that's why, even 3 decades later, the fascination with the 1991 penny continues to grow. Every coin collector knows that tomorrow's $1 million find might already be in circulation today. It could be resting in your pocket, your drawer, or that jar of change on your kitchen counter. All it takes is a moment of curiosity, the decision to look a little closer. By now, you can feel that the 1991 penny is more than a coin. It's a story, a riddle, a hidden key to one of the most fascinating worlds on Earth, the world of collectors, dealers, and treasure hunters who dedicate their lives to finding beauty in metal. To them, a coin is not just an object, it's history you can hold. Every line on its surface, every faint mark of wear, every shine and shadow is a clue to the journey it has taken. The 1991 penny sits at the heart of that fascination because it straddles the line between the ordinary and the miraculous. It's everywhere, yet a few of its kind might be worth more than the rarest gemstones. The global coin collecting community, or numismatic world, is vast, stretching across continents and generations. There are people in every corner of the world who share this obsession, men and women who spend evenings with magnifying lenses, examining coins under lamplight, hunting for the tiniest variation that might transform a simple cent into a once-in-a-lifetime discovery. Some collect for profit, some for passion, but all share the same heartbeat, the thrill of the hunt. The 1991 penny, despite its youth compared to older coins, has carved its own niche in that world. Its blend of mass production and potential mystery gives it a magnetic pull that continues to attract both beginners and experts alike. To understand its market value today, we have to look at the ecosystem that sustains it: the auction houses, grading services, online marketplaces, and private collectors who drive the prices. The coin market is alive, constantly shifting with trends, discoveries, and investor interest. When stories like the $92 million penny circulate, even if partly mythic, they send ripples through this entire network. People rush to check their change, search through old boxes, and submit coins to grading companies hoping they've struck gold, or rather, copper and zinc gold. In this dynamic world, condition reigns supreme. A 1991 penny that has spent years in circulation, rubbed smooth by millions of fingers, might only ever be worth 1 cent. But a coin that somehow avoided the touch of time, kept sealed, untarnished, and gleaming, can command astonishing prices. Collectors crave perfection. They look for those brilliant red surfaces that gleam like fire under light, with sharp details that show every hair on Lincoln's head, every line of the Lincoln Memorial. To achieve that, a coin must have been stored immediately after minting, away from air and moisture. That's why sealed rolls or mint sets from 1991 are still being opened today, because inside one of those rolls might be a flawless gem that could fetch hundreds or even thousands at auction. Auction houses such as Heritage Auctions, Stack's Bowers, and Great Collections regularly feature high-grade Lincoln cents, and while not every coin reaches legendary heights, some of the results are staggering. A 1991 D penny graded MS68 by PCGS once sold for over $3,000, a remarkable figure for something that costs less than a penny to make. The difference between that coin and the billions of others lies in microscopic perfection, the absence of blemishes, flawless luster, and sharp detail. When a collector sees that shine under perfect lighting, they're looking at the closest thing to minting immortality. And it's that idea of perfection, fleeting and rare, that gives such coins their value. But beyond the commercial side, there's something deeply human about the way people connect to coins. They're small symbols of time, proof that our lives and our history are intertwined. A 1991 penny may have been minted the year someone was born. It may have paid for a cup of coffee on a cold morning in Chicago, or been flipped into a wishing fountain in California. When collectors talk about coins, they don't just talk about value. They talk about memory. That emotional layer is what separates numismatics from pure investment. It's art meeting nostalgia. Still, the economics of coin collecting are undeniable. The market for rare U.S. coins has seen consistent growth for decades, driven by both collectors and investors seeking tangible assets in uncertain times. Coins like the 1943 bronze cent or the 1955 double-die penny have proven that a small piece of copper can outperform gold in long-term appreciation. The legend of the 1991 penny worth $92 million feeds into that same narrative, the dream that hidden treasures are still out there. Even if no one has yet produced a publicly verified example of such a coin, the story keeps the market alive with anticipation. Let's imagine the path a single 1991 penny might take through time. Fresh from the Denver Mint, it gleams with reddish light, sharp and new. It clinks into a pile of thousands of others, bagged, and shipped to a Federal Reserve branch. From there, it's distributed to banks across the Midwest. A few days later, a teller opens a roll, slides it into the drawer, and one lucky penny ends up in someone's hand. Maybe that person spends it at a diner, and it gets passed as change to another. Maybe it travels in pockets across cities, across years. Somewhere along the way, one collector spots it. The color, the strike, the luster looks just a little too perfect. They tuck it away in a coin album, protecting it unknowingly for decades. Years later, when the story of the $92 million penny circulates across news headlines and social media, that same person remembers. I think I still have one of those. They pull it out, weigh it, examine the date, check for the mint mark. Maybe it's nothing, But maybe it's everything. That's how legends are born, not in grand discoveries, but in quiet moments of curiosity. What gives the 1991 penny its longevity in public fascination is how relatable it is. Everyone has handled one. Everyone knows what it looks like. You don't need to be a numismatist or historian to appreciate it, it's right there in your change. That accessibility gives it a kind of democratic magic. You can't find a rare diamond in your pocket, but you can find a penny. The possibility that your own hands might hold something priceless makes the story universal, and it's not just Americans who care. Across the globe, collectors in Europe, Asia, and the Middle East trade, study, and display Lincoln cents, seeing them as icons of American culture. The face of Abraham Lincoln is instantly recognizable everywhere, and for many, the penny serves as a piece of Americana, small, symbolic, and enduring. Online forums and international coin fairs often feature discussions about minor variations, die cracks, or color shifts in 1991 issues. Some even speculate about international distribution batches, as certain overseas banks and institutions handled U.S. coin shipments during the early 1990s. The 1991 penny, therefore, isn't just an American artifact, it's a global curiosity. But what about that mythical $92 million valuation? Why such a staggering number for a single cent? Experts suggest it's not the result of ordinary market forces, but rather a blend of rarity speculation and collector psychology. A one-of-a-kind era coin, especially one produced unintentionally by the U.S. Mint, holds nearly limitless value because there's no price precedent. When no other example exists, its worth becomes whatever a determined collector is willing to pay. Combine that with rumors of unique metal composition or provenance linking the coin to a mint experiment, and you have the perfect storm of hype and heritage. Every great coin story eventually turns inward, into the mind of the collector, the heartbeat behind every discovery. To understand why the 1991 penny inspires such obsession, we have to step into that world of quiet patience, magnifying glasses, and flickering desk lamps where collectors spend countless nights hunting for perfection. For them, the act of searching is a ritual, a meditation. They know that the difference between a 1-cent coin and $1 million treasure might be no larger than the width of a human hair. And that difference hides in details most people never see: a microscopic doubling of a letter, a subtle tilt in the mint mark, or the faint glimmer of a die crack that tells a hidden story of how the coin was born. The 1991 penny might look simple, but beneath its copper-plated surface lies a technological masterpiece of American minting. Each coin begins as a tiny blank, a flat disc of zinc coated with pure copper only a few microns thick. These blanks are fed into high-pressure presses that strike them with 60 tons of force, imprinting the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln on one side and the Lincoln Memorial on the other. The precision is staggering. Every ridge, every shadow, every microscopic contour of Lincoln's face is sculpted with artistic and mechanical perfection. Yet even with that precision, no process is flawless. Machines tire, dies wear down, and in those fleeting moments between calibration and control, nature sneaks chaos into the system. That's where error coins are born, those tiny mistakes that collectors spend their lives searching for. The 1991 penny is a playground for such errors. There are misstrikes, off-centers, broad strikes, die clashes, and double dies, each one telling its own miniature drama. A broad strike, for instance, happens when a coin isn't held tightly by the collar during minting. The result is a penny slightly wider and flatter than usual, its edges blurred, like a painting gone soft. An off-center strike shifts the design to one side, leaving a blank crescent of metal, a flaw so beautiful that collectors pay hundreds for it. Then there are double dies, those mesmerizing pieces where the letters of Liberty or the numbers of the dates seem to shimmer and echo, frozen proof of a mechanical heartbeat gone rogue. Even a single doubled letter can send a coin's value soaring. The 1991 series, both from Philadelphia and Denver, is known to hide such treasures. Professional grading companies like PCGS, NGC, and Annex stand at the gate between curiosity and value. Their graders, armed with microscopes and decades of experience, assign each coin a grade, from poor 1 to the flawless MS-70. This grade defines its destiny. An MS-60 penny might fetch a few dollars, while an MS-68 could sell for thousands. The jump between those grades is the difference between almost perfect and perfect to the human eye. It's art disguised as science. Graders measure luster, color, strike sharpness, and surface preservation with near-religious precision. And when they encounter something unusual, a minting anomaly, a composition anomaly, they know they may be staring at history. Some collectors speculate that the mysterious 1991 penny said to be worth $92 million might owe its value to an experimental composition. Rumors swirl of a handful of 1991 cents struck on leftover copper planchets from pre-1982 batches, or even on foreign coin stock mistakenly fed into the minting machines. If true, such a coin would weigh differently, around 3.11 grams instead of the standard 2.5 grams. That tiny difference could change everything. Stories circulate online of hobbyists finding heavy 1991 cents and rushing them to laboratories for testing, hoping to uncover traces of copper alloy far beyond normal tolerance levels. Some of these tests come back inconclusive, others promising, but all fuel the legend. Every time such a story surfaces, coin markets tremble. Prices surge overnight, collectors pull out their magnifiers, and YouTube channels buzz with speculation. Dealers receive floods of messages from hopeful finders convinced they've struck fortune. And every so often, one of those hopefuls really does uncover something extraordinary. A misprint here, a die crack there, each discovery adds another chapter to the living story of the Lincoln cent. The excitement feeds itself, and the myth of the 1991 penny worth tens of millions becomes both a beacon and a mirror reflecting humanity's endless desire to believe in miracles. There's also a psychological dimension that makes the 1991 penny so magnetic. Humans are drawn to paradoxes, and this coin embodies one perfectly. Something that represents the smallest denomination in American currency might secretly hold unimaginable wealth. That contradiction taps into our most primal emotions: hope, greed, wonder. Holding a penny that could be priceless is like holding lightning in your hand. Even if logic says it's impossible, emotion whispers that maybe, just maybe, you're the lucky one. That's why stories of ordinary people finding rare coins always go viral. They speak to something ancient inside us, the idea that the universe hides gifts in plain sight, waiting for eyes sharp enough to see them. Economists and historians have long pointed out that coins reflect the soul of a nation. The 1991 penny, with its image of Lincoln and the enduring motto, "In God We Trust," carries a message about perseverance and faith. It was minted during a period of change, the early 90s, when America stood between old and new eras, technology beginning to reshape daily life, the Cold War ending, and a new century quietly approaching. To hold a 1991 penny is to hold a fragment of that transition. Its copper glow mirrors both nostalgia and innovation, a symbol of continuity in a rapidly changing world. That historical resonance adds another layer of meaning for collectors who see coins not as metal, but as mirrors of culture. When appraisers estimate the worth of an ultra-rare penny, they don't just look at composition or condition. They weigh story, provenance, and demand. If a coin has been featured in news headlines, owned by a famous collector, or linked to a verified minting anomaly, its value can skyrocket overnight. One authenticated proof error can change a life. That's why many serious collectors maintain detailed documentation, certificates of authenticity, photos, and correspondence with grading agencies. They know the story behind the coin is part of the coin itself. The 1991 penny rumored to fetch $92 million would likely come with such a story, perhaps a unique error discovered decades after minting, authenticated through metallurgical analysis, sold in a high-profile auction where bidders fought not just for metal, but for immortality. In today's market, authenticity is everything. Technology has made counterfeiting easier, but it has also armed collectors with defenses. Modern graders use microscopic imaging, spectral analysis, and even laser scanning to detect tampering or plating. A genuine 1991 penny, for instance, has a specific electromagnetic signature due to its copper-zinc balance. Deviations, even minor, can raise red flags. Some counterfeiters have tried to coat foreign blanks or modify weights, but they rarely escape the eye of experts. The integrity of the hobby depends on vigilance, and that vigilance keeps the legend pure, separating myth from fraud, dream from deceit. Yet, perhaps the greatest truth behind this coin's story isn't scientific at all. It's emotional. Every collector who lifts a magnifier to a 1991 penny, every child who checks a coin jar hoping to find something special, is participating in an unspoken tradition that spans centuries. It's the human hunger to connect the past with the present, to touch history, to imagine that fortune hides in the smallest of things. That's why, even if no one ever definitively proves the existence of a $92 million specimen, the myth remains valuable. It inspires people to look closer, to learn, to dream, and that, in its own way, makes every 1991 penny priceless. Sometimes at coin shows, you'll see an older collector open a velvet box and reveal a simple, gleaming Lincoln cent. The onlookers lean in. The coin catches light, and for a second it glows with an otherworldly brilliance. Maybe it's just copper reflecting the ceiling lamps, or maybe it's something more. That quiet awe, that shared breath, is the real treasure. The story of the 1991 penny isn't just about finding money, it's about finding wonder. The story continues in whispered conversations between collectors, in online forums, in late-night searches through coin rolls. Somewhere out there, another person is turning a penny between their fingers right now, hearing that faint metallic click and wondering if they might be holding history. Maybe their coin weighs slightly more, maybe the shine feels different, maybe a tiny detail catches the eye. That's how legends endure, not because they are proven, but because they are pursued. Every piece of metal that leaves the U.S. Mint carries a secret story locked within its atoms. For the 1991 penny, that story is written not just in its design but in its composition, the invisible balance of copper and zinc that gives it life, color, and even sound. To most people, a penny is a penny. But to those who understand metallurgy, it's a fingerprint of an era. And for some rare 1991 pennies, that fingerprint might not match any other coin ever made. That's where the mystery deepens, and science steps in to decode it. From 1982 onward, the U.S. Mint changed the composition of the 1-cent coin from 95% copper and 5% zinc to a much cheaper core of 97.5% zinc coated with a thin layer of copper. This change saved the Mint millions of dollars, but it also introduced new complexities. Zinc behaves differently under pressure, temperature, and wear. It corrodes faster, it weighs less, and it produces a different tone when struck. The official weight of a post-1982 penny is 2.5 grams, yet collectors have occasionally found 1991 specimens weighing closer to 3.1 grams, the weight of the older copper cents. Such anomalies are what fuel the idea that some 1991 pennies were struck on leftover copper planchets. That small difference in weight could turn an everyday coin into an artifact worth millions. When scientists study such coins, they don't rely on guesswork. They use tools like X-ray fluorescence spectrometry to measure metal content down to the atomic level. A true copper-based 1991 penny would reveal traces of tin and phosphorus that don't exist in zinc-based coins. Under magnification, the copper's grain structure would appear smoother and denser, and the color would deepen into a warm, reddish glow that never fades. It's these subtle scientific clues that distinguish a minting miracle from an illusion. And it's precisely this kind of investigation that could explain how a single coin, if proven unique, could command an unimaginable price, even $92 million. Why such a huge number? Because in numismatics, uniqueness is the ultimate currency. When there's only one of something in the entire world, its value stops being rational. It becomes emotional, historical, mythic. Think of the 1933 Double Eagle, the world's most famous $20 gold coin, which sold for over $18 million in 2021. Its value didn't come from gold weight alone. It came from its story, its accidental survival against government orders to melt them all. A single verified 1991 penny struck on the wrong metal, authenticated and documented, would follow that same path. It would no longer be just a coin, it would be a relic of American minting history, a tangible accident turned legend. Inside the mints, the process of creation borders on poetry and chaos. Massive coining presses operate at incredible speed, striking hundreds of coins per minute, each one pressed between hardened steel dies. The dies themselves are engraved with microscopic precision, but over time, they wear. Tiny cracks form, fine scratches appear, and sometimes pieces of the die face chip away. These small imperfections imprint themselves onto the coins, creating the so-called die varieties that collectors hunt. A single extra line in the Lincoln Memorial, an extra dot between letters, or a subtle doubling of Lincoln's eye can make one penny different from billions. The 1991 series, because of its vast production numbers and the aging equipment of the era, is full of such hidden quirks. To study a penny properly, experts often use what's called a tilt and glow test. Under a white light, they slowly tilt the coin to catch the luster, that wave of reflected brilliance that moves across its surface. On an uncirculated 1991 penny, that luster should flow like silk, uninterrupted, revealing the mint's precision. If it flickers or dulls in strange patterns, it may indicate an experimental strike or an anomaly in the planchet. Even small air bubbles trapped beneath the copper layer, called blisters, can tell a story about minting temperature and plating thickness. To a casual observer, these are imperfections. To a trained eye, they're fingerprints of creation. But science can't explain everything. There's an aura around the 1991 penny that defies pure logic, a collective fascination that keeps pulling people back to it. Some collectors whisper about unconfirmed prototypes, experimental alloys, or test strikes linked to new plating methods the mint was experimenting with during that period. The early 90s were a time of transition not only in technology but also in minting policy. Some insiders have hinted that a few test planchets of non-standard composition may have been accidentally mixed into regular production runs. If even one of those planchets bore the 1991 date, it could rewrite everything. The U.S. Mint's records are meticulous, but even the best systems have blind spots. Accidents happen, and history has shown that such accidents can produce coins of unimaginable value. The 1943 copper penny was one such mistake, struck when leftover copper blanks were fed into presses intended for steel planchets during wartime. Only a few dozen survived, but each is now worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. A similar fluke in 1991, involving obsolete copper blanks, would fit perfectly into that lineage of minting miracles. And given how many billions of pennies were produced that year, it's not impossible that one slipped through undetected. Collectors often describe the thrill of discovery as electric. The instant a scale tips to 3.1 grams or a loop reveals double digits on the date. It's not just about money, it's about validation. The idea that you, an ordinary person, could stumble upon something the entire world overlooked is intoxicating. That emotion drives the endless searches through coin rolls, the careful sorting, the weighing, the photographing. The 1991 penny, with its legendary $92 million rumor, fuels that fire more than any other modern cent. It's a spark that ignites imagination and keeps collectors awake at night, turning over handfuls of change, wondering what secrets hide there. In laboratories and collector circles, conversations about the 1991 cent often evolve into discussions about the future of money itself. As the world moves toward digital currency, physical coins become artifacts, pieces of a disappearing past. Their value increases not only because they're rare, but because they're real. You can touch them, feel their weight, sense their permanence. The 1991 penny belongs to that last golden age of tangible currency, before cards and screens took over. That nostalgic connection adds a layer of sentimentality that no digital token could ever match. A coin like that becomes both history and emotion condensed into metal. When experts appraise a potentially priceless coin, they follow an intricate ritual. First, they test authenticity. Then they trace provenance, the chain of ownership. Finally, they gauge market psychology, how much excitement, speculation, and historical importance surround the coin. These three factors, authenticity, provenance, and sentiment, can multiply its price beyond any rational boundary. In the case of the 1991 penny, The rumor of a $92 million specimen may well stem from private collectors bidding in secrecy, valuing the coin not just as an object, but as a piece of living mythology. Because in numismatics, the line between value and legend is beautifully blurred. There's also something poetic about how a penny, meant to represent the smallest unit of worth, can symbolize infinite potential. The design itself reminds us of that. Abraham Lincoln, the man who rose from humble beginnings to lead a nation, immortalized on the lowest denomination. That symbolism alone gives emotional weight to every penny bearing his face. The 1991 issue, born from modern minting yet carrying old-world dignity, feels like the bridge between eras. It's Lincoln's legacy meeting modern America's ingenuity in a single copper-colored disc. And when people say one of them might be worth $92 million, it almost feels fitting. The penny that carries the story of the self-made man could itself become the self-made fortune. Think of the energy surrounding it, thousands of people watching videos, weighing coins, dreaming. That collective fascination creates its own market force. A myth repeated enough times becomes its own kind of truth, not because it's proven, but because it shapes reality. Prices rise, auctions heat up, collectors whisper and trade, and soon the myth itself has value. The 1991 penny has achieved that rare state where fact and fiction blend into one continuous narrative, and every new discovery, every unusual weight, every tiny mark, breathes new life into the story. When you hold a 1991 penny, you're not just holding metal. You're holding history, science, art, and belief fused together. You're holding a conversation between human precision and human error. You're holding the possibility that something so small could carry the weight of a legend. That's the alchemy of coin collecting, turning curiosity into value, turning the ordinary into the extraordinary. And the 1991 penny, humble yet haunting, remains one of the most compelling symbols of that transformation. The legend of the 1991 penny has grown far beyond the quiet walls of museums or the scholarly tone of numismatic journals. It now lives in the rhythm of keyboards, in the glow of smartphone screens, and in the unending scroll of online treasure hunters. Once, collectors would spend decades searching through pocket change in solitude, guided only by magnifying glasses and worn price guides. Today, a single video, a single post, or a single viral clip can awaken millions of people to the possibility that the coin lying in their kitchen drawer could be worth more than a mansion. The 1991 penny has become a digital age myth, a story retold through pixels, reshaped by algorithms, and amplified by the collective thrill of discovery. In this new world, information spreads faster than ever, but so does imagination. A rumor about one extraordinary coin sold for $92 million ripples across the internet like an electric storm. Someone uploads a grainy photo, another person adds a dramatic headline, and before long thousands of people are tilting coins under lamps, filming the shimmer of copper, and whispering in awe about hidden fortunes. The line between verified fact and hopeful fiction blurs completely, yet that blur only fuels the excitement. Because deep down, every viewer wants to believe that one small coin can change a life. That belief is the emotional engine behind every click, every share, every late-night search through spare change jars. The rise of digital grading has given this old hobby a futuristic edge. Modern grading services use automated scanners, artificial intelligence, and spectral imaging to evaluate coins with precision beyond human eyesight. They can detect micro scratches smaller than a hair's width, measure reflectivity across the entire surface, and assign digital fingerprints to each specimen so no counterfeit can hide. A 1991 penny passing through such a system becomes more than an object. It becomes a data point in a global archive of rarity and perfection. Collectors can watch in real time as their coin is logged, imaged, and stored, a living record that turns physical metal into eternal digital value. Yet even with all this technology, the human heart remains the final arbiter of worth. When a 1991 penny appears on auction platforms like eBay or Heritage, it's not just numbers and algorithms that drive the bidding, it's passion. Each bidder brings a story, a childhood memory, a dream, a curiosity, and those stories converge into competition. The rhythm of the bidding war mirrors a heartbeat, steady at first, then racing as numbers climb. What starts as a modest $10 listing can ignite into a flurry of offers, climbing through hundreds, thousands, even tens of thousands, as speculation and desire feed on each other. For that brief moment, everyone watching feels the same electricity, the rush of witnessing history repeating itself, 1 cent at a time. In collector communities, both online and off, discussions about the 1991 penny have evolved into philosophical debates. Some argue it's a modern miracle, proof that rarity can still emerge from mass production. Others see it as a reflection of society's hunger for hope, a symbol of how ordinary people reach for extraordinary dreams. On forums and Discord servers, enthusiasts trade microscopic images and measurements, trying to decode the truth from the noise. There are debates about double dyes, ghosting effects, mint-mark positioning, and re-engraving patterns. Every photo becomes evidence, every anomaly a clue. It's almost like a collective investigation, thousands of detectives searching for a single elusive fact hidden in plain sight. But even among experts, there's an acknowledgement that mystery is part of the magic. If the $92 million penny were proven beyond doubt, the story would end. Certainty would replace imagination, and the thrill of the chase would vanish. The legend thrives precisely because it hovers between possible and impossible. That tension keeps people talking, collecting, dreaming. It keeps the humble penny alive in an age when most people don't even bother to pick one up from the ground. There's also a deeper economic poetry in the idea of a penny worth millions. It mirrors the volatility of modern value itself, how something seemingly worthless can suddenly become priceless. The same internet that inflated the worth of digital art and rare NFTs has now turned its gaze to tangible relics. Videos analyzing the 1991 penny rack up millions of views. Thumbnails promise fortunes. Comments overflow with personal stories of discovery. The coin becomes not just an artifact but a cultural phenomenon, a mirror of how people define luck and value in the digital century. Every like, every comment, every repost adds another layer to its mythology. Meanwhile, serious collectors and appraisers watch the frenzy with mixed feelings. On one hand, they know that 99.999% of these pennies will never be worth more than face value. On the other, they recognize that this viral passion breathes new life into a fading hobby. Young audiences who might never have cared about numismatics now talk about mint marks and die errors with enthusiasm. The 1991 penny, in that sense, has accomplished what no official marketing campaign ever could. It has made coin collecting thrilling again. It has reminded people that history isn't locked in museums. It can be found in their own pockets. At coin shows across America, the legend travels like wildfire. Dealers place 1991 cents under bright lamps, letting their copper surfaces glow as customers lean in with curiosity. Some laugh, others whisper, but all of them feel the pull. Tables display rolls of unsearched pennies, promising potential treasure inside. People bring kitchen scales, magnifiers, even ultraviolet lights to test for anomalies. It's part science, part superstition, part performance art. The energy in the air feels like a carnival, the carnival of chance, where every small circle of metal might hide a miracle. Amid all this excitement, there's a quieter realization forming. The value of the 1991 penny isn't just measured in dollars. It's measured in moments. The hours spent searching, the conversations shared, the collective wonder that bridges generations. A grandfather teaching his grandchild to read mint marks, a teenager filming their first coin discovery, an elderly collector sharing wisdom online. These are the true dividends of the legend. Money fades, but stories endure, and this coin has become a vessel for thousands of them. Technology has also opened the door for a new kind of preservation. Digital archives now allow anyone to store high-resolution 3D scans of their coins, ensuring that even if the physical metal is lost, its image remains forever. Museums and private collectors are digitizing their rarest pieces, creating virtual exhibits where the 1991 penny might someday sit alongside the world's most valuable coins, accessible to anyone, anywhere. The idea that a single cent can occupy such a digital throne feels almost poetic. The smallest denomination elevated by the largest network humanity has ever built. As the story spreads, even skeptics find themselves drawn to its magnetism. Economists analyze the psychology of speculative value. Artists paint abstract interpretations of the penny's reflection. Writers use it as metaphor for transformation and luck. The legend spills beyond numismatics into culture, inspiring creativity in unexpected places. The coin's copper glow becomes a symbol of resilience, a reminder that greatness can emerge from the simplest things. That perhaps, in the smallest coin, there's a reflection of every person's hidden potential waiting to be discovered. In the end, the $92 million figure becomes less about literal worth and more about what it represents: belief. Belief that history hides in plain sight. Belief that effort can uncover miracles. Belief that even in an age of screens and codes, something as simple as a penny can still make hearts race. And maybe that's the most valuable thing of all. The way this tiny coin reminds humanity to keep looking closer, to keep believing, to keep turning over the everyday until wonder reveals itself once again. As the decades rolled forward, the whisper of the 1991 penny refused to fade. Every generation of collectors passed the rumor to the next, that somewhere, perhaps in an old wooden drawer, a forgotten jar, or a sealed mint roll, lay the single coin that could rewrite history. Dealers came and went, markets rose and fell, but the story endured like a pulse beneath the surface of time. Even when the U.S. Mint itself moved on to new alloys, new techniques, and digital tracking systems, the memory of that small, reddish coin still flickered in the minds of dreamers. Some said they'd seen it, that mysterious 1991 cent with the impossible weight, the deeper tone, the richer hue. Others dismissed it as legend, a mirage born from obsession. But the most passionate collectors didn't care which side was right. They understood that sometimes, the pursuit itself is the treasure. Because when you spend years searching, learning, and hoping, every coin you hold becomes more than metal. It becomes part of your story. In quiet rooms across America, the old experts still meet. They place magnifiers over their eyes, spread cloths across the table, and examine coins under the gentle hum of fluorescent light. They talk about the good old days, the great finds, and the ones that got away. And inevitably, someone always mentions the 1991 penny. The conversation grows softer, reverent. They speak of it not as an object, but as a symbol, of mystery, of luck, of the way history sometimes hides its greatest secrets in plain sight. Meanwhile, the younger generation approaches the legend with digital curiosity. They post photos, analyze die varieties in 4K clarity, and trade findings with people halfway across the world. The excitement crosses languages and borders. Somewhere in Japan, a collector uploads a video showing a penny with unusual coloring. In Germany, a numismatist compares density readings on a laboratory scale. In Canada, a young student discovers an odd vibration when striking a 1991 coin on metal. Each new observation renews the thrill. What if, after all these years, the $92 million penny still waits to be found? But maybe the true worth of this legend was never in the number. Maybe it lies in what the penny taught everyone who chased it, that value is created not by decree, but by belief. That even in a world rushing toward the future, the smallest relic of the past can stop time for a heartbeat. A penny minted for circulation, for vending machines, for pockets, for the unnoticed corners of life, somehow transcended its purpose and became a story told by millions. The auctions grew quieter as the years passed, yet one day, a mysterious event shook the numismatic world. A private collector, known only by initials, announced possession of a 1991 Lincoln cent unlike any other. It was sealed in a slab of reinforced acrylic, certified by independent laboratories, confirmed at 3.11 grams, struck in 95% copper. Its surface shimmered with an ancient warmth, untouched by corrosion or wear. The die marks matched no known examples. Experts gathered, historians leaned in, cameras flashed, and for a few moments the world stood still. The auction that followed didn't happen in a hall or an exhibition. It took place behind closed doors, a silent transaction whispered through encrypted calls and signed with secrecy. The final bid? $92 million. A single cent transformed into a legend of unimaginable value. The announcement, when it leaked, spread like wildfire. Some believed it, others doubted it. but the truth mattered less than the wonder it stirred. The story of the 1991 penny had come full circle. From myth to miracle. In the aftermath, collectors around the world began to look at their coins differently. Every penny, nickel, dime, and quarter became a potential relic. People rediscovered the beauty of imperfections: a doubled die, a clipped edge, a misaligned strike. They realized that value could hide anywhere, even in what the world ignores. Children began saving coins again, not for their spending power, but for their mystery. The act of searching became a quiet rebellion against the forgetfulness of the digital age. And somewhere out there, maybe still today, another 1991 penny lies unnoticed. Maybe it's at the bottom of a piggy bank, buried beneath decades of dust. Maybe it rests in a change drawer of an old cash register, passed through thousands of hands, carrying invisible history in its scratches. Maybe it's in your own pocket, right now, waiting for you to look a little closer, because that's the real message hidden beneath the copper glow, that even the smallest things can hold infinite meaning. That greatness doesn't always shine from gold or silver. Sometimes, it hums quietly in the dull red of a penny. The 1991 1-cent coin stands as proof that mystery still exists, that luck still breathes in everyday life, and that stories, like coins, never truly disappear. They just wait for the right light to reveal their brilliance again. And so, when the legend of the $92 million penny is told to future generations, it will not just be about money. It will be about hope, curiosity, and the endless hunger to discover something more. A story of how one small coin reminded the world that value isn't minted, it's imagined. If you ever hold a 1991 penny, pause for a moment. Let its weight rest in your palm. Feel its cool surface. Think of the millions that look just like it, and the one that doesn't. Remember that between those two lies all the difference in the world. That's the beauty of the 1991 penny. It's not just a coin. It's a question. A dream. A reminder that even the smallest circle of copper can carry the shape of destiny itself. And somewhere in that circle, under the portrait of Abraham Lincoln, the dream of America, the belief that anything is possible, still gleams softly, waiting to be found again.